When a wealthy executive's son forgives the slap heard around the park, it sets off a chain of events that unravels past mistakes, tests the boundaries of redemption, and redefines the meaning of family. But can second chances truly heal old wounds, or will the scars remain? The park was bustling with activity on a bright Saturday morning. 11-year-old Malik Whitaker sat cross-legged on the grass near the fountain, his sketchbook resting on his lap. The laughter of children playing on the swings and the chatter of families enjoying picnics created a lively background as Malik lost himself in his drawing. He was sketching a large oak tree nearby, its sprawling branches reaching out like arms, shading a group of park benches beneath it. Malik loved the park. It was a place where he could escape the structured routine of school and the quiet intensity of his home. His father, Donovan Whitaker, was a high-powered executive at LuxCorp, a prestigious company headquartered just a block away from the park. Despite his busy schedule, Donovan always tried to carve out time for Malik, promising him lunch together after his morning meeting at the office. Malik glanced at his watch. His father wasn't late yet, but Malik had learned not to expect precision when it came to business meetings. With a shrug, he turned his attention back to his drawing, determined to finish the oak tree before his dad arrived. Nearby, a commotion broke out near a food vendor's cart. Malik glanced up to see a tall, well-dressed woman arguing loudly with the vendor. She was in her mid-40s, with blonde hair styled in perfect waves and wearing a designer outfit that screamed wealth and status. Her voice was sharp, and her gestures were exaggerated as she waved a credit card in the vendor's face. "This is ridiculous," the woman snapped, her face flushed with anger. "You expect me to pay cash for this? Who doesn't accept cards in this day and age?" The vendor, a kind-faced older man, raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but the card reader is down. I can't process your payment right now." "Well, fix it," she demanded, her voice rising. "I'm not walking around with greasy bills like some common." Malik frowned as he watched the scene. The woman's tone grated on him, but he knew better than to get involved. Instead, he returned to his sketch, adding detail to the tree trunk as the argument continued in the background. Moments later, the woman stormed away from the cart, clutching a soda cup she had begrudgingly paid for. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she made her way toward the fountain. Malik, focused on his sketch, didn't notice her approach until it was too late. The woman tripped on a crack in the pavement, her soda spilling across her pristine white blouse. She let out a sharp cry, her face twisting in anger as she looked around for someone to blame. Her eyes landed on Malik, who was still sitting quietly with his sketchbook. "You," she barked, storming toward him. "You're just sitting here, distracting everyone. That's why I tripped." Malik blinked, confused. "Ma'am, I didn't do anything," he said politely, standing up and clutching his sketchbook. The woman's face turned red with fury. "Don't talk back to me," she snapped, raising her hand. Before Malik could react, she slapped him across the face. The sound of the slap seemed to echo in the park, and Malik stumbled back, his hand flying to his cheek. Tears stung his eyes, but he quickly straightened, staring at the woman with a mixture of shock and defiance. "What's wrong with you?" he demanded, his voice trembling but firm. "You can't just hit people because you're mad." The woman's anger faltered for a moment, replaced by a flicker of unease. But her pride wouldn't let her back down. "Maybe next time, you'll think twice before sitting in the way," she said haughtily, though her voice lacked its earlier venom. Malik's expression hardened. He raised his voice, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "My dad is your boss." The woman froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. Malik stood his ground, pointing a finger at her. "You heard me. My dad is Donovan Whitaker, and he's going to hear about this." A hush fell over the nearby crowd as the woman's face turned pale. She glanced around, realizing people were watching, their expressions a mix of shock and judgment. This is a misunderstanding, she stammered, taking a step back. I didn't mean. Malik, a deep voice called out, cutting through the tension like a knife. Malik turned to see his father striding toward them, his tall, commanding figure unmistakable. Donovan was dressed in a sharp navy suit, his expression calm but with an edge of steel in his eyes. He stopped in front of Malik, his gaze dropping to the red mark on his son's cheek. Malik, Donovan said, kneeling slightly to look him in the eyes. What happened? Malik pointed at the woman, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. She hit me, Dad. For no reason. Donovan's head snapped up, his piercing gaze locking onto the woman. She shrank under his scrutiny, her earlier confidence evaporating. Is this true? Donovan asked, his tone dangerously calm. I didn't mean to, the woman stammered, her hands wringing nervously. It was an accident. He startled me, and I. That's not what happened, Malik interrupted, his voice firm. She was yelling at the vendor, and then she blamed me for tripping. Donovan straightened, his full height towering over the woman. His expression was unreadable, but the tension in his jaw spoke volumes. Miss Davenport, she said weakly. Amelia Davenport. Donovan's eyes narrowed. You work for Lux Corp, don't you? Amelia nodded, her face paling further. I do, sir. Donovan crossed his arms, his voice icy. Then you know how I handle situations like this. You'll hear from me on Monday. Amelia opened her mouth to protest but seemed to think better of it. Instead, she nodded quickly and hurried away, her designer heels clicking against the pavement. Donovan turned back to Malik, his expression softening. Are you all right? He asked, gently touching his son's cheek. Malik nodded, though his eyes still glistened with unshed tears. Yeah, he said quietly. I'm okay. Donovan straightened, placing a reassuring hand on Malik's shoulder. Come on, he said. Let's go get that lunch. As they walked away, Malik felt a swell of pride. His father had always taught him to stand up for what was right, and today, Malik had done just that. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger. Monday morning arrived with a palpable tension in the air. Lux Corp's headquarters, a sleek skyscraper in the heart of the city, buzzed with its usual corporate energy. Employees hurried through the glass doors, clutching their coffees and briefcases, their chatter blending into the rhythmic clicks of heels against the marble floor. But for Amelia Davenport, this wasn't an ordinary day. She had barely slept the night before, replaying the events at the park over and over in her mind. Her outburst, the slap, and Malik's damning words, "My dad is your boss," had left her in a state of panic. She knew Donovan Whitaker's reputation. He was known for being sharp, fair, and uncompromising, especially when it came to matters of integrity. If he decided to act on what had happened, her career could very well be over. As she stepped into the office, Amelia felt every pair of eyes on her. Whether it was her imagination or the office grapevine working overtime, she couldn't tell, but the weight of their gazes made her quicken her pace toward her desk. She had barely set down her bag when her phone buzzed. A single message appeared on the screen, Donovan Whitaker's office. 10 a.m. Her heart sank. The time was already 9:45. Amelia grabbed her tablet and smoothed her blazer, trying to compose herself. The walk to Donovan's office felt endless, her heels echoing against the polished floor. When she reached the massive wooden door, she hesitated for a moment before knocking. "Come in," Donovan's deep voice called from the other side. Amelia pushed the door open and stepped inside. The office was expansive, its walls lined with bookshelves and adorned with modern art. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, but Amelia was too focused on the man behind the desk to appreciate it. Donovan sat with his back straight, his hands folded neatly on the desk. His expression was calm, but his piercing gaze sent a shiver down her spine. Beside him sat Malik, looking more composed than Amelia felt. The redness on his cheek had faded, but his unwavering stare reminded her of the gravity of her actions. "Ms. Davenport," Donovan began, his voice even but firm. "Take a seat." Amelia obeyed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of the situation settling heavily over them. "Do you know why you're here?" Donovan asked, breaking the silence. Amelia swallowed hard. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "I want to apologize for my behavior on Saturday. It was unacceptable, and I deeply regret my actions." Donovan leaned forward slightly, his gaze unwavering. "Unacceptable doesn't begin to cover it," he said. "You struck my son. A child. Do you understand the severity of that?" "Yes," Amelia said, her voice trembling. "I wasn't thinking." "You weren't thinking," Donovan interrupted, his tone sharp. "You let your frustration get the better of you, and you lashed out at someone who had done nothing to deserve it. Tell me, Ms. Davenport, if Malik hadn't spoken up, would you have even apologized?" Amelia opened her mouth but found herself unable to answer. The truth was painful, and Donovan's words cut through her defenses like a knife. She lowered her gaze, shame washing over her. "I'll be honest with you," Donovan continued. "If this were just a matter of poor judgment, it would be easier to address. But this isn't the first time I've heard complaints about your temper. Your colleagues have mentioned it. Vendors have mentioned it. Saturday's incident was simply the most egregious example." Amelia's head snapped up, her eyes wide. I didn't realize." "That doesn't excuse it," Donovan said firmly. "You've been with Lux Corp for years, and your contributions have been valuable. But no amount of success in this company gives you the right to treat others poorly, least of all my son." Malik, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "You were really mean," he said, his voice steady but unyielding. "You didn't even listen to me before you got mad. And you hit me because you were upset." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "You're right," she said softly. "You didn't deserve that, Malik. No one does. I'm so sorry." Donovan studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. "Ms. Davenport," he said, "I believe in accountability. But I also believe in second chances, when they're earned." Amelia looked up, her breath catching. "What does that mean?" "It means you're not fired," Donovan said. "Not yet. But you'll be on probation, and there will be conditions. First, you'll attend anger management sessions. Second, you'll meet with every colleague or vendor you've mistreated and offer them a sincere apology. And third, you'll prove that you can conduct yourself with the professionalism this company demands." Amelia nodded quickly, her voice trembling with gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. I promise I'll make this right." Donovan's expression softened slightly, though his tone remained firm. "For your sake, I hope you do. Because there won't be another chance." As Amelia left the office, she felt a mix of relief and determination. She had been given an opportunity to change, and she knew she couldn't waste it. But as she glanced back at Malik, who stood confidently by his father's side, she realized something else: the boy she had wronged had shown her more grace than she had deserved. And that, more than anything, made her want to be better. The rest of the day was a whirlwind for Amelia as she tried to process the events of the meeting. Donovan Whitaker's words echoed in her mind, "There won't be another chance." She felt as though the ground beneath her had shifted, leaving her unsure of how to regain her footing. The realization that her actions had brought her to the brink of losing everything was sobering. She sat at her desk in the Lux Corp offices, staring blankly at her computer screen. Work emails flooded her inbox, but she couldn't focus on any of them. The faces of Malik and Donovan haunted her, the boy's steady gaze and the father's stern yet composed demeanor replaying in her mind. She had been so wrapped up in her own frustrations and pride that she hadn't seen the damage she was causing, until it was too late. A knock at her cubicle jolted her from her thoughts. She turned to see her closest colleague, Fiona, standing there with a concerned expression. Fiona was one of the few people in the office who had always been kind to Amelia, despite her sharp edges. "Hey," Fiona said softly, leaning against the cubicle wall. "You okay?" Amelia forced a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I've been better," she admitted. "Rough morning." Fiona hesitated before speaking again. "I heard about the meeting with Donovan," she said gently. "Word travels fast around here." Amelia felt her stomach drop. "Of course it does," she muttered. "Great." Fiona crossed her arms, her expression a mix of sympathy and curiosity. "Do you want to talk about it?" Amelia hesitated, then sighed. "I messed up, Fiona. Big time. I lost my temper with someone I shouldn't have. And it wasn't just anyone, it was his son." Fiona's eyes widened. "His son? Malik?" Amelia nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know who he was at the time. I let my frustration get the better of me, and I took it out on him. Now Donovan's given me one last chance to prove I can change." Fiona was quiet for a moment, then said, "Well, maybe this is your opportunity to turn things around. It's not too late, Amelia." Amelia looked at her friend, her throat tightening. "What if I can't?" she asked. "What if I've already burned too many bridges?" Fiona placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "The fact that you're even asking that question means you care enough to try. That's a good start." As Fiona left, Amelia sat back in her chair, letting out a long, shaky breath. She knew Fiona was right, this was her chance to make things right, not just with Donovan and Malik but with herself. But the path forward felt daunting. Later that evening, Amelia sat in her car in the LuxCorp parking garage, scrolling through her phone. She had found a local anger management program and hesitantly signed up for an introductory session the following week. The act felt both humbling and empowering. Admitting she needed help was a step she hadn't expected to take, but it felt necessary. Her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from her daughter, Lila. "Mom, will you be home for dinner tonight? I miss you." Amelia's chest tightened as guilt washed over her. Since the divorce, she had thrown herself into work, often at the expense of spending time with Lila. Her daughter had been incredibly understanding, but Amelia knew she deserved better. She typed a quick reply, "Yes, sweetheart. I'll be home soon. Let's have dinner together." By the time Amelia walked through the door of their modest apartment, the weight of the day had begun to lift. Lila greeted her with a hug, her bright smile a reminder of what truly mattered. They spent the evening cooking spaghetti together, laughing as they spilled sauce and argued over how much Parmesan cheese was too much. As they sat down to eat, Lila asked, "How was work today, Mom?" Amelia hesitated, then decided to be honest. "It was challenging," she admitted. "But it made me realize some things I need to work on." Lila tilted her head, her expression curious. "Like what?" Amelia smiled softly. "Like being more patient. And making sure I don't let my anger get the better of me." Lila nodded thoughtfully. "That's a good thing to work on," she said. "But you're still the best mom ever." Amelia's heart swelled, and she reached across the table to squeeze Lila's hand. "Thank you, sweetheart. I'm going to try to be even better, for you." That night, as Amelia tucked Lila into bed, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to prove that she could change. For her daughter, for herself, and for everyone she had wronged. The next day, she began drafting a list of people she needed to apologize to, starting with the vendor at the park. It was a small step, but it was a start. And for the first time in a long while, Amelia felt a glimmer of hope. The following Saturday, Amelia stood outside the park vendor's cart, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the envelope in her hand. It was early morning, and the park was quieter than usual, with only a few joggers and families scattered around. She had spent the past week preparing for this moment, rehearsing what she would say and hoping it would be enough to make things right. The vendor, Mr. Rodriguez, was busy organizing his supplies when he noticed her approach. He was an older man with kind eyes, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed under his baseball cap. He paused, his expression neutral as he recognized her. "Good morning," Amelia began, her voice tentative. I wanted to talk to you, if that's all right." Mr. Rodriguez straightened, wiping his hands on a towel. "Morning," he said cautiously. "What can I do for you?" Amelia hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology," she said. "Last week, I was completely out of line. I was rude, disrespectful, and I took my frustration out on you. That wasn't fair, and I'm truly sorry." Mr. Rodriguez studied her for a moment, his expression softening slightly. "You were having a rough day," he said. "But you're right, it wasn't fair." "I've been reflecting a lot," Amelia continued, her voice growing steadier. "And I realized that my behavior that day was part of a pattern. I've let stress and anger control me, and it's hurt people like you, who didn't deserve it. I'm trying to change that." She extended the envelope toward him. "Please accept this as a small gesture of my regret. It's a reimbursement for the trouble I caused and a little extra for your business." Mr. Rodriguez hesitated before taking the envelope. He opened it, his eyebrows raising slightly at the amount. "This is more than I expected," he said, his tone softening further. "You didn't have to do this." Amelia smiled faintly. "It's the least I can do. And if there's ever anything else I can do to make up for my behavior, please let me know." Mr. Rodriguez nodded, slipping the envelope into his apron. "Thank you," he said. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. I appreciate you coming back and saying this." As Amelia walked away from the cart, a sense of relief washed over her. It was a small step, but it felt like the first meaningful one she had taken in a long time. She made her way to a nearby bench, sitting down and taking in the serene morning atmosphere. She noticed a few families walking by, children laughing and playing. The sight reminded her of Malik, and her heart clenched with guilt. She had yet to make amends with him, and the thought of facing him again filled her with both dread and determination. As if on cue, she saw Malik and Donovan walking down the park path together. Malik held a basketball under one arm, his laughter carrying across the distance as he spoke animatedly to his father. Donovan's calm demeanor softened as he smiled at his son, clearly enjoying the rare moment of free time with him. Amelia hesitated, unsure whether to approach them. But she knew this was her chance, and she couldn't let fear stop her. Standing, she straightened her jacket and made her way toward them. Donovan noticed her first, his expression immediately growing serious. He stopped walking, placing a protective hand on Malik's shoulder. Malik followed his father's gaze and stiffened slightly when he saw her. "Ms. Davenport," Donovan said, his tone neutral but guarded. "What brings you here?" Amelia stopped a few steps away, her hands clasped in front of her. "Good morning, Mr. Whitaker, Malik," she said, her voice steady. I wanted to speak to you both, if that's all right." Donovan raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Go ahead." Amelia turned to Malik, her heart pounding. "Malik, I owe you the biggest apology of all. What I did last week was completely unacceptable. I was angry and frustrated, but that's no excuse for the way I treated you. I shouldn't have blamed you, and I certainly had no right to hit you. I'm so sorry." Malik looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Why are you saying this now?" he asked. "Because you're scared of my dad." Amelia flinched at his words but met his gaze. No, she said honestly. Your dad already gave me my consequences. I'm saying this because I want to make it right with you. You didn't deserve what happened, and I need you to know how sorry I am. For a moment, Malik didn't respond. He looked at his father, who gave him a small, encouraging nod, then back at Amelia. Finally, he said, "Okay. I believe you. But you have to promise not to do that to anyone else." Amelia felt tears sting her eyes as she nodded. "I promise, Malik. I'm working on becoming a better person, and I'll do everything I can to keep that promise." Malik's expression softened slightly. "All right," he said. "I forgive you." Relief flooded through Amelia, and she smiled gratefully. "Thank you," she said. "That means more to me than you know." Donovan's expression remained unreadable, but there was a hint of approval in his tone as he spoke. "You've taken a step in the right direction, Ms. Davenport. But actions speak louder than words. Keep doing the work." "I will," Amelia said, her voice resolute. "Thank you both for giving me a chance to make amends." As she walked away, Amelia felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The path to redemption was still long, but she was beginning to believe she could navigate it. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope that she could truly change. The following week marked the beginning of Amelia's true transformation. She had apologized to Malik and the park vendor, but she knew those were just the first steps. Donovan's warning, actions speak louder than words, rang in her ears as she prepared to face the deeper challenges of change. She had a list of people she needed to make amends with and a growing understanding of how her behavior had affected others. Amelia's first anger management session was held at a modest community center. The room was plain, with folding chairs arranged in a circle and a whiteboard at the front. She felt out of place as she walked in, her designer outfit contrasting sharply with the casual attire of the other attendees. Some were there by court order, others by personal choice, but they all shared a common goal: to regain control over their emotions. The session leader, a kind and patient woman named Grace, welcomed the group warmly. "Anger is a natural emotion," Grace began, her voice calm and reassuring. "It's how we handle it that defines who we are. This is a safe space to learn, reflect, and grow." Amelia sat quietly at first, listening as others shared their stories. One man talked about how his temper had cost him his job. A woman tearfully described how her outbursts had strained her relationship with her children. As Amelia listened, she realized she wasn't alone in her struggles. These people weren't bad, they were human, just like her. When it was her turn to speak, Amelia hesitated before standing. "I'm here because I hurt someone," she admitted, her voice trembling. "A child. My anger got the best of me, and I did something I'll regret for the rest of my life. I'm here because I want to make sure that never happens again." The group responded with nods of understanding, and Grace smiled encouragingly. "Acknowledging the problem is the first step," she said. "You're here, and that means you're willing to change." The session ended with practical exercises, breathing techniques, journaling prompts, and strategies for recognizing triggers. Amelia left feeling both humbled and empowered. For the first time, she felt like she had the tools to confront her emotions instead of being controlled by them. Back at work, Amelia continued her journey of accountability. She scheduled meetings with colleagues she had clashed with in the past, offering sincere apologies and listening to their perspectives. One of these meetings was with Fiona, who had always been supportive despite Amelia's prickly demeanor. "I want to thank you," Amelia told Fiona, her voice steady. "You've been kind to me even when I didn't deserve it. I'm sorry for the times I took that kindness for granted." Fiona smiled warmly. "I've always believed in you, Amelia. I'm glad to see you're believing in yourself now, too." As the days passed, Amelia's efforts didn't go unnoticed. Her colleagues began to see a change in her. She was calmer, more approachable, and willing to own her mistakes. Even Donovan, though still reserved, acknowledged her progress during a brief conversation in the hallway. "You're doing well," he said. "Keep it up." The most significant moment of growth, however, came when Amelia invited Malik and Donovan to dinner at her home. She wanted to show them that she was committed to rebuilding trust, not just in words but in actions. When they arrived, Malik was greeted by Lila, who had been eagerly waiting to meet him. The two children quickly bonded over their shared interests, laughing and talking as if they had known each other forever. Donovan observed the interaction with quiet approval, his sharp eyes softened by the sight of his son smiling so freely. Amelia served a simple but heartfelt meal, nervous but determined to make the evening a success. As they ate, she opened up about her struggles, sharing the challenges she faced as a single mother and her journey toward self-improvement. "I'm not perfect," she admitted. "But I'm trying. And I'm grateful for the chance to prove that I can be better." Donovan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We all make mistakes," he said. "What matters is how we move forward." By the end of the evening, the atmosphere was warm and filled with laughter. Malik and Lila exchanged phone numbers, already making plans for their next meeting. Donovan shook Amelia's hand as they prepared to leave, his grip firm but not unkind. "You've made progress," he said. "Keep going." Amelia watched them walk to their car, her heart swelling with a mix of relief and gratitude. She knew there was still work to be done, but for the first time, she felt like she was on the right path. As she closed the door behind her, she smiled, thinking of how far she had come, and how much further she was willing to go. As the weeks went by, Amelia continued to embrace the changes in her life, but she knew that her journey was far from over. Despite her progress at work and in her personal growth, there was still one relationship she hadn't fully repaired, her connection with Malik. While their initial conversation at the park had ended with his forgiveness, Amelia sensed there was still a wall between them. She wanted to earn his trust, not just his forgiveness, and to show him that her apology was more than just words. The opportunity came sooner than she expected. One Friday evening, Donovan called her with a surprising proposition. "Ms. Davenport," Donovan began, his tone as professional as ever. "Malik mentioned that he's been spending time with your daughter, Lila. They've become good friends." Amelia smiled softly, though she was surprised by the call. "Yes, Lila's mentioned Malik, too. She seems very fond of him." "Good," Donovan said. "Malik has a basketball game tomorrow morning, and he asked if Lila could come to watch. I thought this might be a good opportunity for you to join as well." Amelia hesitated, her heart racing. The invitation felt significant, like a test of her sincerity and commitment to her new path. "I'd be happy to," she said finally. "Thank you for inviting us." The next morning, Amelia and Lila arrived at the community gym where the game was being held. The atmosphere was lively, with parents cheering from the bleachers and the sounds of squeaking sneakers and bouncing basketballs filling the air. Amelia scanned the court, quickly spotting Malik among the players. He looked focused and confident, his energy contagious as he dribbled the ball down the court. "Mom, there's Malik," Lila said excitedly, tugging on Amelia's arm. "Can I go say hi?" Amelia nodded. "Of course. Just wait until there's a break in the game." They found seats near Donovan, who greeted them with a polite nod. Amelia felt a pang of nervousness as she sat down beside him, but his calm demeanor put her at ease. "Malik's pretty good," Amelia said, trying to break the ice. Donovan's expression softened slightly. "He's been practicing a lot. Basketball helps him channel his energy, and he loves it." The game was fast-paced and exciting, with Malik's team quickly taking the lead. Lila cheered loudly every time Malik touched the ball, her enthusiasm drawing smiles from the parents around them. Amelia couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as she watched Malik play. His determination and teamwork were evident, and she saw a reflection of Donovan's discipline and focus in his every move. During halftime, Malik jogged over to the bleachers, a wide grin on his face. "Did you see that layup?" he asked, looking directly at Lila. "It was awesome," Lila said, bouncing on her toes. "You're so fast." Malik laughed, then turned to Amelia. His smile faltered slightly, but he didn't look away. "Thanks for coming," he said quietly. Amelia's heart swelled with a mix of relief and gratitude. "Of course," she said. "You're really talented, Malik. It's amazing to watch you play." Malik gave a small nod, then returned to his team as the second half began. Amelia watched him with renewed determination. She didn't just want to cheer for him, she wanted to be someone he could rely on. After the game ended in a hard-fought victory for Malik's team, Donovan invited Amelia and Lila to join them for lunch. They found a nearby diner, its cozy booths and friendly atmosphere providing the perfect setting to unwind. Malik and Lila talked non-stop about the game, their laughter filling the space as they shared stories and inside jokes. Amelia used the opportunity to learn more about Malik, asking questions about his hobbies, his school life, and his goals. She was careful not to push too hard, letting the conversation flow naturally. To her surprise, Malik opened up more than she expected, sharing stories about his favorite players and the hours he spent practicing in the driveway. "I want to play for the school team next year," Malik said, his eyes shining with excitement. "But I need to work on my three-pointers." "You'll get there," Amelia said with a genuine smile. "You've got the determination and the talent." Malik glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "Thanks," he said, his tone softer than before. As the lunch wound down, Amelia felt a sense of connection forming, a fragile but promising bond. She knew there was still work to do, but the day had been a step in the right direction. Malik was starting to let his guard down, and she was determined to prove that she deserved his trust. When they left the diner, Malik turned to her. "Are you coming to my next game?" he asked, his tone almost shy. Amelia's chest tightened with emotion, but she kept her smile steady. "If you want me there, I wouldn't miss it for the world." Malik nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Okay. See you then." As she walked back to the car with Lila, Amelia felt a flicker of hope. She had made mistakes, but moments like these reminded her that she could make things right, one step, one game, one conversation at a time. The following weeks brought steady progress in Amelia's journey toward redemption. She had attended every one of Malik's basketball games, cheering him on alongside Lila and Donovan. Each game was another opportunity to strengthen her bond with Malik, and though their interactions were still cautious at times, there was an unmistakable shift in their dynamic. Malik no longer looked at her with guarded eyes, instead, he met her gaze with a tentative warmth that gave Amelia hope. At work, Amelia's efforts to rebuild trust with her colleagues were also paying off. Her apologies were met with a mix of surprise and gratitude, and she had started to mend relationships that had once felt irreparably strained. Donovan, while still professional and reserved, had begun to acknowledge her growth in subtle but meaningful ways. One Friday afternoon, Donovan called Amelia into his office. The sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow over the room. Amelia entered, feeling a mix of curiosity and nervousness. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Whitaker?" she asked. Donovan gestured for her to sit. "Yes, I did. I wanted to discuss your progress," he said, his tone calm but firm. "It's been several weeks since our initial conversation, and I've been observing how you've handled yourself." Amelia nodded, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure where this was going, but she braced herself for whatever Donovan had to say. "I'll be honest with you," Donovan continued. "When this situation first arose, I wasn't sure you could turn things around. But you've proven me wrong. You've shown accountability, genuine effort, and a willingness to grow. That doesn't go unnoticed." Amelia felt a wave of relief wash over her, though she kept her composure. "Thank you, sir," she said. "I've worked hard to make things right, and I'm grateful for the chance to do so. Donovan studied her for a moment, then leaned back in his chair. There's one more thing I'd like you to do, he said. I'd like you to take on a mentorship role with some of our newer employees. Your experience, both the mistakes and the lessons learned, could be valuable to them. Amelia's eyes widened. She hadn't expected this. A mentorship role, she repeated. Donovan nodded. Think of it as an opportunity to not only share what you've learned but to solidify the changes you've made. It's one thing to grow personally, it's another to help others grow as well. Amelia considered this for a moment, then smiled. I'd be honored, she said. Thank you for trusting me with this. Donovan gave a small nod, his expression softening slightly. You've earned it. Keep proving that. As Amelia left his office, a sense of purpose filled her. The mentorship role felt like a chance to not only continue her journey but to give back in a meaningful way. She was determined to rise to the occasion. That weekend, Malik invited Amelia and Lila to his school for a community event. The school was hosting a family fun day, complete with games, food, and activities. Malik was especially excited about the basketball free throw competition, where he planned to showcase his newly honed skills. When they arrived, the school courtyard was bustling with activity. Booths lined the perimeter, offering everything from face painting to baked goods, and the sounds of laughter and music filled the air. Malik and Lila immediately gravitated toward the basketball court, where a small crowd had gathered to watch the competition. Are you going to win? Lila teased Malik as they walked. I've been practicing, Malik said confidently. I've got this. Amelia watched the exchange with a smile. The bond between the two children had grown strong, and their friendship brought a warmth to her heart. She turned to Donovan, who stood beside her, his expression calm but proud as he watched his son. Malik's really improved, Amelia said. You must be proud. I am, Donovan said. He's worked hard, and it shows. As the competition began, Malik stepped up to the free throw line, his focus unwavering. He sank the first shot effortlessly, drawing cheers from the crowd. One by one, he continued to make his shots, each one building his confidence. By the end of the round, he had outscored every other participant. When the announcer declared him the winner, Malik's face lit up with joy. He turned to the crowd, searching for Donovan, Lila, and Amelia. Spotting them, he raised his trophy high, his grin stretching from ear to ear. You did it! Lila shouted, running over to high-five him. Amelia followed, her heart swelling with pride. That was incredible, Malik, she said. You've got real talent. Thanks, Malik said, his voice warm. He paused, then added, it means a lot that you were here. Amelia felt a lump rise in her throat, but she managed a smile. It means a lot to me, too. As the day wound down, the group sat together on a picnic blanket, enjoying hot dogs and lemonade. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the courtyard. Amelia looked around at the scene, Lila and Malik laughing together, Donovan watching his son with quiet pride, and felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in years. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she could truly be part of something good. It wasn't just about making amends anymore, it was about building a future filled with trust, respect, and love. And as she watched Malik and Lila playfully argue over who would win the next basketball competition, Amelia knew she was ready to embrace that future with open arms. The weeks that followed the family fun day solidified the changes Amelia had worked so hard to make. She had taken on the mentorship role at LuxCorp with enthusiasm, meeting with newer employees to share her insights and encourage their growth. The experience was humbling but rewarding. By teaching others, she reinforced the lessons she had learned and found a new sense of purpose in helping others succeed. At home, her relationship with Lila grew stronger. Amelia made it a priority to spend quality time with her daughter, something she had often neglected in the past. They cooked dinners together, went on weekend outings, and even started a small herb garden on their balcony. Lila's laughter filled the apartment, and for the first time in years, it truly felt like a home. Her relationship with Malik, too, continued to deepen. They weren't just cordial anymore, there was genuine warmth and trust in their interactions. Malik's natural curiosity about the world and his talent on the basketball court inspired Amelia. She admired his resilience and kindness, traits he had inherited from his father. One evening, Donovan invited Amelia and Lila to dinner at his house. It was a quiet, elegant home, filled with warm lighting and a sense of understated sophistication. Malik greeted them at the door, eager to show Lila his basketball trophies and share the latest updates on his school team. Amelia found herself sitting across the dining table from Donovan, their conversation flowing easily as they discussed work, parenting, and life in general. Donovan's guarded demeanor had softened considerably, and Amelia could see in his eyes a deep respect for the progress she had made. "You've come a long way," Donovan said as they cleared the dishes after dinner. "Not just at work, but in every part of your life. It's not easy to face your flaws and work to change them." Amelia nodded, her gaze steady. "I had a lot to lose," she admitted. "And I realized I didn't want to keep making excuses for my behavior. I wanted to be better, for myself, for Lila, and for everyone I've hurt." Donovan smiled faintly. "You've shown that you're capable of change. That's something not everyone is willing to do." As the evening wound down, Malik and Lila sat in the living room, laughing as they played a board game. Donovan and Amelia stood in the doorway, watching them with a shared sense of pride. "They've really become great friends," Amelia said softly. "They have," Donovan agreed. "And I think that friendship has taught both of them a lot about understanding and forgiveness." Amelia glanced at Donovan, her expression thoughtful. "I hope it's taught me the same thing," she said. Before they left, Malik handed Amelia a small card. "This is for you," he said, his voice shy but sincere. Amelia opened the card to find a drawing of a basketball and a simple message in Malik's neat handwriting: "Thanks for coming to my games. It means a lot to me. Malik." Amelia's eyes filled with tears, but she managed to keep her composure. "Thank you, Malik," she said. "This means a lot to me, too." As she and Lila drove home that night, Amelia felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had been given a second chance, not just by Donovan and Malik, but by herself. She had learned that true change came not from avoiding mistakes but from confronting them head-on and taking responsibility. Months later, Malik's basketball team made it to the regional finals, and Amelia was there in the front row, cheering alongside Lila and Donovan. When the team won, Malik ran to the stands, his trophy held high, his face beaming with joy. As Malik stood there, basking in the cheers of his team and the crowd, Amelia realized something profound. This wasn't just about basketball or redemption, it was about connection. About finding a way to mend the broken pieces of the past and build something stronger in their place. And as the celebration continued, Amelia knew she had found her place, not just in the lives of those she had wronged but in her own life, where she had learned to lead with kindness, humility, and strength. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with promise, purpose, and the unshakable bonds of family and friendship. This story is a profound exploration of accountability, redemption, and the power of forgiveness. Amelia's journey reminds us that mistakes, no matter how grave, don't have to define us if we are willing to face them head-on and put in the effort to change. It's a story about second chances, not just the kind we receive from others, but the kind we give ourselves when we commit to being better. The bond that develops between Amelia and Malik is particularly moving. It highlights the resilience of children and their ability to see the good in people, even when they've been hurt. Malik's courage to forgive and Amelia's determination to make amends show that trust can be rebuilt, but it requires humility, effort, and time. Donovan's role as both a protective father and a fair leader adds depth to the narrative. His balanced approach, firm when needed but supportive when deserved, provides a framework for how to handle complex situations with both justice and grace. The story's ending, where friendships flourish and family bonds deepen, is a heartwarming reminder that while we can't change the past, we have the power to shape a brighter future. It leaves readers with a sense of hope, showing that redemption is not a destination but a journey, and one worth taking.